leaving because of that.
But that's not really a policy, though, right? Like what?
That's a policy. The gender transition in the military is a policy. That should never be. Should never spend a dime in the military on gender transition.
Okay, so do you believe, though, that if you are transgender and you've already transitioned, that you should be allowed to serve in the military?
No, I don't think you should be able to serve in the military.
Why? What do you care what somebody does with their body?
Because of morale of the soldiers in the military.
What do you mean morale?
It affects morale. When you have, let's say the infantry. I was out in the infantry, face to face, at forward operating bases. You're close in, it doesn't work well. You can't have somebody transitioning to a female from male in special forces.
Why?
Because of it destroys morale in the military. Look, why the Green Beret just got out. People are
so
getting
if
out.
I told you that,
well, if somebody's strong, there's still a lot of religious people too in the military, and it goes absolutely against their religion.
So do what you want to do.
But this is the military. The military's number one mission is to protect you and me and our families and this nation from losing this country. And it hurts the military. What does it have to do
with what's between your legs? I don't understand. With all due respect, I don't know. If someone is willing to risk their life for this country, what does it matter whether they have a surgery or not? I'm talking about before.
I just tell you, it destroys morale within the unit. That's case after case. It's destroyed morale.
So you're going to treat somebody differently.
I'm also, for what it's worth, even though I have my daughters, and Biden has really increased the number of women in combat arms. That's hurting the military too. You can't put women in the infantry forward lines.
What if they can pass a physical test just like a man can?
A few can, but not many can. It still destroys. It destroys. There's a fighting power. It's hard to explain. And maybe that I'm really wrong on this, but that's what I believe, and that's what I've seen, and that's how
You're
I grew
entitled
up.
to your belief.
And I have two daughters who went to West Point.
Understood.
And one is
all the power to them.
One is a Ford observer.
I guess this is where we disagree. If you're willing to risk your life for this country, number one, I don't care what's between your legs. And I think if some people, it ruins morale, then I think they have their own issues, and that's on them.
First of all, it costs money for the military to do that transition.
But hold on. Now, I'm not talking about that, Bill. Okay. And I tend to agree with you, by the way, on that point that you're making. I don't think we should have to pay for transgender surgery if you're in the military. So I'll give you that. I agree with you. I'm talking about someone that already had the surgery. If they can pass a physical test and they're willing to risk their life for this country, if there are people in the military that say that ruins morale, then I would say that's on them, because in my personal opinion, it's a bigoted approach. I don't understand it.
My son got accepted to West Point.
Right.
And he hadn't taken his physical yet. He broke his arm right here. He lost 10% of his movement.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
The Air Force runs all the physicals, and it didn't allow him to go into any of the academies. We went back, and we got a captain in the Navy actually to sign off and give him, and he actually went to the Coast Guard Academy.
Sure.
But the military is a tough place. It's not a place to experiment.
Understood.
Let me tell you one of the positives about the military. I think we're way ahead of integration in the military with our society. In fact, prior to Obama, I don't think we had a race issue at all in the military. And that's another thing that they're bringing up, that there's a race issues within the military. That didn't exist, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And it seemed like under Obama, it started to come up because of the idea of inequality, in that certain gender has privilege over another gender, being promotions and development to be balanced.
I don't think any gender should have best. I agree with you 150%. So that leads to my point, I guess. If you have and then we'll get off this subject, but if a transgender individual, I don't care if it's man versus to woman, woman,
it's so anti the culture. A lot of the soldiers come out of the South. A lot of the troops come out, and they're not. And parents, I can tell you how many parents I know who are West Point grads said, I don't want my kids to go to the military anymore. You're losing a lot of folks. And let me tell you another thing. And the woke, and there's a lot of woke tendencies. The woke, they're trying to recruit woke into the military. Just look at the commercials they were putting out 2 and 3 years ago. And I'll tell you what, the woke don't want to be in the military when they get there. I know I talked to a lot of folks. You've seen some of the commercials, like Sally's got 2 moms from the Army.
Who cares if they have 2 moms?
It doesn't help morale. I mean, this is about life and death. This is about, what the bottom line of an infantry soldier has to do?
What does life and death have to do with whether somebody has 2 moms or 2 dads?
An infantry soldier has to go kill somebody.
Sure.
You don't want to.
It's life and death decisions. I am with you 150. I'm with you 150%, but there's no data that would prove that if you have 2 moms, that's going to change the way you behave.
We've never had a high propensity of women in the military. I'm just the woke culture.
Then there should be a physical test. I'm with you on
but
that.
I mean, it's.
But if a transgender can pass
let's
that
say you
physical
don't
test,
like. Let's say you don't like the folks. Let's say you don't like the folks who don't believe that a woman should be there for two moms, or they don't want to go in because
who cares
they,
what
it's
kind of parents they have? Like, I don't understand that.
But by the way, in the recruiting goals, figure this: the Marine Corps, who stayed away from that for the most part, has the only organization are meeting their recruiting goals. The Army is down by 15% right now. They're gonna, it's 50 years without a draft. I don't like the draft, but they might have to bring back the draft because of the shortage of people in the military.
Well,
it's a cultural thing. It's coming out of the South. Why do you think?
What's a cultural thing? Anti-transgender?
No, the military has a lot of culture. Most of the people in the military, it's only 1%. They come from families who've been in the military, and a majority still come out of the South.
But what culture are you referring to? The culture of I have to have a dad and a mom, and I can't have two moms or two dads? Because to me, that's not a culture. Well, that's just judgmental of people.
You don't have to advertise it. Remember, don't ask, don't tell? That was probably a good policy.
Well, what do you mean? Okay, so that's a different topic now.
That was under Clinton, and that was a pretty good policy. That seemed to work. It's quiet. I have people in my family who are gay, and I had any issue with my family being gay.
I don't think there's anything wrong with being proud of who you are, whether you have two moms or two dads.
I'm just saying, though, within the military, though, it's a cultural thing. You've got soldiers. You've got 17, 18, and 19, and 21-year-old soldiers in the Korengal Valley. 2 days before my second deployment, we lost 9 guys in a forward operating base.
Listen, you're not
going to... It's a bloody, nasty place.
I understand, and I am not going to discount that.
Look at Sam Brown. Sam Brown got blown up.
I understand. I am not going to discount.
And his driver got killed.
It is why I understand, and that's why I call every single person who serves this country honorably, like yourself, an absolute hero to this nation. And I would never discount the seriousness. You are risking your life for the freedoms that we have. My only point, and I think this is where we disagree, I don't care if they have 8 parents that are moms or 8 parents that are dads, and I don't care what's between their legs. So as long as they can do the job and they're willing to risk this life for this country, I don't think that should hurt morale. In fact, you should be welcomed, and I just don't understand it. Same thing with a police officer or a firefighter or a teacher or a radio host. Why do people care so much what's between your legs? So long as you can do the job, why not just let people be who they are?
Well, let me tell you why the Special Forces captain got out after he survived, because he's a very strong Catholic. He actually went to the monastery before he became an officer.
Gotcha.
So I'm telling you why he specifically got out.
Okay.
So you are losing people like that, and he was a good officer.
So he decided not to serve this country because there are transgenders in the military.
Well, I guess it was.
What was his reason?
His strong religious convictions that's wrong.
Well, he's entitled to that. He doesn't have to serve them.
Yeah.
But I don't want to.
Yeah. Anyway, that's never happened before. We never had transgenders in the military until now, till under Biden. We had them in support in the contractor world, which is fine. I remember when I went to flight school. I went to flight school as a captain. One of the instructor pilots who had been in Vietnam as a warrant officer had done some kind of transgender type environment. This is a long time ago.
Yeah.
So it's out there, but it wasn't a big deal.
But
when you force it right now, it's just we're a crazy world. I truly believe that we're going to be in a fighting war with China within a year. I think there's a good high probability a year to 18 months because China has a window, and they'll probably blockade Taiwan and probably go into Taiwan, and we'll have to see what happens. We're building runways right now in Philippines and some of the Outer Banks and some islands we had during World War II. There's 8 different runways being built. In fact, they're moving a lot of people. My daughter's classmates are over in the Philippines right now who are engineers.
Oh, wow.
Building runways.
I did not know that.
Stationed in Florida.
All the power to it, man.
My daughter was on call. By the way, she just got pregnant, so.
Congratulations.
She's trying to become a JAG officer. Hopefully it speeds up towards going to law school.
I guess, Bill, and then I certainly want to get to some of the local topics.
Yeah, let's talk about the campaign.
I do. I just want to say one more thing. I think this is a fundamental difference, and I'm going to generalize now. I don't like to. Today, a fundamental difference between Republicans and Democrats today. It is, I want people, and I'm an independent, but I lean to the left on social issues. There's no question about that. I want people to live their lives. I want people to be who they are. I don't feel like everybody's being indoctrinated or people being forced to do things. There might be a couple instances here and there.
Should somebody be forced to be? I know how you come back. If somebody really disdains the idea of a gender transition or something like that, or what is it? It sustains the lifestyle. Should they be forced to be in that lifestyle around?
Of course not. Should they be forced to? Who's being forced
Well,
to
in
be
the
around them?
military, you have to be around.
Then don't be in the military.
Oh, and
Should I be?
So that's what's. I'm telling you, that's what's happening.
Well, I think that's a bigoted approach.
People aren't going. But that's what's happening.
So if I
you just made my point.
Right.
20-30%. In fact, the call is even going out stronger to parents not to have their kids go in the military.
So if I don't like somebody because of the color of their skin, should I be forced to hang out with them? I mean, that's really what you're saying. Because their sexuality is different than yours? I mean, that's what we're talking about here.
The military, for some reason, the military has done well in integration. It's not based on. I never would base anybody on the color of their skin.
Do you know why transgenders and people that are gay for many years, people say, well, we didn't have these type of people in the military because they were afraid to be who they are.
There are gay people in the military, and it was fine. Don't ask, don't tell.
Well, there were a lot of people that had a problem with that also on the right. They had a problem with people who were gay in the military. There were people that had a problem with that too. There are still people today that have a problem.
I served in that environment. I thought it was okay. It worked. And I'm not opposed to somebody being gay. I'm just telling you what happens to the young soldier. What happens to the 17, 18, 19, 21-year-old who comes from a family who's maybe multi-generation in the military, and they're good people, but they just are not going in right now because of the woke policies of the Biden administration.
Well, you know what I would say to those people, to a hero, a young 17 or 18-year-old that you're talking about that might have a problem with transgenders? I would say, I was brought up to treat people as equals. No matter whether they're different than me, it could be sexuality or whether they're transgender. Here's the most important thing, in my opinion. They have a good heart like yours. They can do the job like you can do the job, and they're willing to risk their life for this country. And let's put aside sexual differences. That's what I would say to that individual.
In the meantime, in the real world, we're about to go to war.
Yeah, and
a lot of people aren't going to the military.
Well, if people don't want to be in the military and they don't want to risk their life for this country because they don't want to work along someone else who wants to risk their life because their sexuality might be different or they're a transgender, then I would say I probably don't want that person
the
serving
number
in the
of
military.
transgenders are very small in the military. I mean, that's one case in Special Forces. It's the only case I know.
Yeah.
And the only other case I knew is one of the instructors in flight school who wasn't in the military. He was a contractor.
So you think...
And we had, I can't think of his name, not Bergdahl. Bergdahl's one of AWOL. But in fact, I was over there in the talk. The kid, I know the kid's name. He went to Leavenworth after transferring to WikiLeaks the data. I was in Bagram when that happened. He did a transition surgery at Leavenworth and then was given a pardon by Obama. I think that's
definitely a different situation.
Manning was his name.
Yep.
Became a her. That's another one. I mean, that stuff started happening. I just don't think it's a good policy. It's not. If you're outside, I mean, I don't know what it physically does to you when you do a transition. You start doing hormones, things like that. It can't be good for your body. I'm not a doctor. Well,
cigarettes probably aren't good for your body. Drinking probably isn't good for your body.
I think
there's a lot of soldiers that do that.
Red wine is okay in moderation.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that people do that might not be good for their body, but if someone is physically able to do the job,
they've tailored that a lot too. You can have a DUI and be in the military. You might.
I don't have a problem with that.
I'm just saying that used to be people had DUIs.
I don't have a problem with that.
40 years ago.
Yeah. Listen.